Hey guys, it's Julie Melillo. My website is yourdreamslifecoach.com, talking again about narcissists. This is not what I do in my coaching, so if you want help with a narcissist that has harmed you, go talk with a therapist instead. This is just my own personal experience and what I've learned, and I want to share that with other people because it just helps when you know what's going on, and otherwise it's maddening when you don't understand what the heck is going on with this person. So the concept I want to talk about today is the way that narcissists see themselves and the world, and the fact that it's basically delusional. I want to contrast this with what healthy people do and how we form opinions and see ourselves. So in a nutshell, narcissists, in my opinion, are basically delusional because they're not looking at objective reality, like the world. They're not able to see that in an objective way. Instead, everything to them is what their ego whispers in their ear. So their ego will whisper in their ear. This is why I think it's like a delusion, almost. They're not exactly hallucinating, but it's like they have this voice in them that is speaking to them so strongly and they believe it blindly. So it's kind of like, is that almost a delusion? Because their ego will whisper in their ear and be like, you're the best. You're the best ever. No one's ever been as good as you. You're amazing. You're perfect. Or their ego will whisper like, you're the worst, you're a loser, you're horrible, you're terrible, and this explains a lot of their behavior because depending on what their ego is telling them at that moment, all of their other behavior is like to cope with that. Okay, so if they feel like they're the best, they're going to be acting like they assume that everyone will treat them like they're the best, and that's entitlement, right? Which would make sense if you really were like the best ever in all of the land. People would treat you that way, right? That would make sense. But if you're not, it makes no sense. And then you seem crazy because you kind of are acting crazy, expecting people to treat you as like the best Olympic athlete who has ever graced the land. And you're just some dude in the gym who's totally normal, right? Okay, I know I'm throwing a lot of different ideas around here, but so it's both how they see themselves and how they see the world. Their opinions, all of that is going to be based on what their ego is whispering. So their ego will tell them, oh yeah, I like this idea. It makes me feel so smart to learn about this topic or to believe this idea or whatever. Their ego is whispering that, but that's not objective reality, right? So objective reality would be looking around, seeing what's there, comparing, contrasting, trying to prove something in the real world. That's what science is, right? Like you have a guess, then you see if it works out that way. That's the basis of science because you're testing things in the real world, right? And then you're also aware of what happens when you test it, what happened with it, and you can see it as it really is. Well, narcissists don't see things as they really are because it's all through this ego whispering in their ear. So let's say their science experiment fails, the ego will whisper. I mean, it depends. The ego might realize that it failed and then whisper, oh, you're such a loser, you're not even a real scientist, you're such a fraud, you should just you're terrible. Or the ego might whisper, oh, that was someone else's fault, your experiment actually was perfect and your experiment actually did get the result that you wanted, but this was all somebody else's fault. Okay, so that's the weird thing about it, is their ego will tell them things that have no relation to reality, and that's why it's delusional, and that's why it's not exactly it's not a hallucination or anything like that, but it almost is like an auditory hallucination because they're hearing something that they are blindly believing is true. Of course, it's their own ego telling them this, right? So I don't know how you would classify that, but to me, that is really pretty crazy. So, yeah, and it's both with them and with their beliefs. So they might believe in something like, they might believe the world works a certain way that it really doesn't, and they can't prove it, but their ego has whispered to them and they have blindly believed it, okay? It's also why they will believe that they're special or superior or better than other people. And it comes down to this idea of they don't have to prove it. Normal people have to prove it, and they know it, and they're not going to accept what someone else says without proof, and they're also not going to accept their own ideas without proof. The narcissist doesn't work that way. They accept someone else's ideas based on, does this person make me feel smart? Does this person make me feel special or better about myself? If so, I'm going to just accept their ideas blindly. And well, they must be right because I like them. They're not going to look for evidence of things. They might also look at something external, like this person's rich, so I'm going to believe them, or this person is, you know, famous, so I'm going to believe them. They won't look to evidence of is what the person is saying true? Can they prove what they're saying is true? They're not going to really care too much about any of that. So the same goes with themselves. The way that they see themselves, they might tell you that they are just the most special person in the world. They might say they're the most attractive person in the world, or the most confident, or the best at whatever. But then they can't prove it. And if you ask them to prove it, they'll be pretty shocked, because that's just not how they think. They don't think in terms of reality. They think in terms of, well, but I know I'm the best because I feel like I'm the best, though. And that's as far as it goes. It sounds so strange, but it also explains things like the entitlement. Because think about it. If you really thought that you were the best in the world, wouldn't you be entitled? If you actually were the best in the world and had achieved something amazing, right, and everyone knew it, you would be entitled to things other people aren't. That's objective reality. But if you're just some person on the street who hasn't done that, then no, that's entitlement and that's a disorder, and you're basically being delusional, right? So if you are and this is something narcissists do a lot, they give themselves credit for things they haven't done. So they'll say oh, this year I'm going to write a novel, or this year I'm going to compose music, and it's going to be the best in the world. And already they're giving themselves credit as if they've done it. Already they're giving themselves that entitlement that they think other people should treat them as if they're Mozart or whatever, when in fact they've done nothing. They might not even know how to write music or play an instrument or anything. They might literally know nothing about it, but yet they want to be treated as if they are Mozart. And if they aren't, they're deeply, highly offended that you wouldn't, immediately buy this, because they buy it. They blindly believe what their ego is telling them. So a lot of what they're drawn to is really, it's all ego, right? So if they listen to something and it has lots of big words in it, they're going to feel like, oh yes, I'm so smart because this has so many big words in it, and I don't know what the big words mean, but I must be smart simply because I'm associated with this thing, okay? And I was thinking about this because I saw a narc who wrote something like, I don't understand this topic, but, and I was like, wait, what? You don't understand it? Why are you reading things you don't understand? And it didn't seem like they had any interest in learning it. They wanted to just be associated with something that sounded brainy and it had big words, and it made them feel important to listen to a podcast that had a bunch of big words in it. Even if they didn't learn anything from it, don't know what any of the words mean, they don't care, because it gives them that ego boost of, oh, I'm so important, I'm so intelligent. And that's where it stops. So it's just a very weird thing. They have this feeling of being, special or whatever, and they don't need to back it up. Someone else, like say you have an average man and he looks pretty average. A normal brained person is going to get feedback from the world and accurately know, oh, okay, I look pretty average. This is like kind of where I'm at. Like Brad Pitt's here, and I I don't want to give an example for like the worst, that'd be really offensive. The most unattractive person is here, and I'm like somewhere in this area, right? And they would know that from objective feedback from the world, including their mirror, how they look in the mirror, comparing themselves to how the 10 out of 10 celebrity looks, right? Feedback from other people. This is like objective. I mean, yeah, it's subjective because it's looks, but it's somewhat objective for your beauty standards or whatever. You'd know where you fit based on these opinions of other people and then your own opinion and all of this comparing to like the best and the worst. But the narcissist is just going to listen to what the ego whispers in its ear. Oh, you're the most gorgeous man ever. And he will believe that based on absolutely nothing. So that's like a crazy idea to get your head around if you're learning about narcissism and not understanding. So that's why like that ugly guy, he's not even average. He's like unattractive, is swaggering around like, why aren't the women buying me drinks? Huh? They better, right? And you're just like, is he joking? Like, is that a joke? No, oh my gosh, how could he believe that though? That's how. His ego whispered in his ear and told him he was the best. That's it. And this is not just a guy thing. Same thing with women, okay? And same thing with everything. This isn't just about looks. This is about intelligence. This is about talent, skill, Oh, I could take that whole car apart or computer apart or learn Chinese. I could write in Chinese characters like that. It'd be so easy for me. They'll say something like that and again, have nothing to back it up with. It's not like, well, I've been an engineer for 30 years, so I really understand cars, or I've studied Asian languages for most of my life, or I'm already bilingual. No, it's just like, oh, my ego whispered in my ear and told me that I could, so I'm going to give myself credit for that. That's how the ego works with narcissists. It's a very broken brain, and I think part of it is coming from this thing of narcissists are kind of stuck at an infant level stage where it's normal to be entitled and to be special. Like infants are always special and perfect to their mom or their parents simply because they exist, okay? And that's how it should be. That's, normal for that stage. But once we're older, it doesn't work like that anymore. Once you're grown and you're in the world, this person is not your mommy. And this is the thing, or your daddy. Narcissists don't get that. They see everyone in the world as their mommy or daddy who should blindly accept them, let them get away with anything, tell them that they're a princess, tell them that they're a rock star, and they'll really believe it. The way that like a little tiny kid would. I don't know the ages, maybe like really young kid, right? Because older kids know when like you're humoring them and you're like, oh, you're a princess. They know like, oh, I'm not really a princess, but she's just saying that. But really tiny kids might not know that. They might really believe that they are the King of England because you told them that, wow, you're so amazing, you're like the King of England, and they will feel like, oh yeah, I guess I am the King of England, okay. That's kind of the stage narcissists are at, where they're not at an adult level. They can't prove it, nor do they have any interest in trying to prove it, and they don't have much interest in trying to prove other people's claims either. Again, it's all ego. It's how this makes them feel. So if someone else tells them, oh, I'm the King of England, they will believe it if that makes their ego feel important. It's crazy. So narcissists will see people around them as having traits that they don't even have if that feeds their ego. Okay? Or they might think their significant other is like stunningly gorgeous when they're not at all because that feeds their ego again. So it's like very, very delusional. They can believe some crazy stuff. Now, there are times that reality does get in, and it kind of forces them to be like, maybe I'm not the King of England. Yeah, my passport does not say that on it, does it? And they will accept some of these hard truths sometimes, but other things they will cling to, and they will just continue to write a narrative, much like a crazy person would, except they're like somehow sane. They're not delusional enough to be like psychotic where they think, there's some plot to get them, but they will write a narrative that is that complicated. Very complicated narratives. Oh, well, I am the King of England, but the only reason that he didn't believe that is because he's jealous of me and he's threatened by me. And so when I say King of England, you think like, oh, that's psychosis, that's really being delusional because they're believing a fact that isn't true. But it's also not true if you are unattractive to think that you look like a model, for example. And a narcissist very well may believe something like that and will just write narrative upon narrative when they get evidence to the contrary. So if someone's like, you think you're the most attractive person in the world, well, but you're not tall enough to be a model, or you're really, really overweight, or, you look like this, whatever it is, okay? Not to be mean, this isn't about like beauty norms or being mean. It's about objective reality, okay? If someone looks nothing like a model, let's say you have this man who's like, oh, I should be America's next top model, and you're like, how can he think that? Then he'll write these narratives, and well, I just have a different look, or you don't understand the unique look that I have, or you must have a problem with your vision, or you only think people are attractive that are blah blah blah, whereas I'm blah blah blah, or you're just jealous, or you're just unhappy that I wouldn't date you. That's why you're not seeing my gorgeousness. They will just pile on BS, BS, BS on top of whatever that truth is. And that's where you get into the craziness, where they really do believe it. They really do believe everyone else is just jealous. Now, a normal person might do this a little bit with themselves. They might like kid themselves a little bit, but then they're going to at some point step back and be like, wait a second, I need to figure out what's what here. Let me really look at reality and see where I fit into this. Am I really a genius because I did the crossword puzzle? Maybe, maybe not. I need to like look into this more. Okay, what makes up a genius? How would I know if I was that? Actually, that guy seems really, really freaking smart. I can't even understand what he's saying. Well, if I was a genius, I probably would be able to understand easily what he was saying. But I'm definitely smarter than that guy. Okay? So you kind of look for objective data and you place yourself in there, and it's consistent. It's consistent. Like you might have some slight changes, like, oh yeah, I've really been studying a lot. I feel like maybe I like improved my smarts just a teensy bit here, but you're not going to have like a drastic change, right? But the key is that you're looking to the outside world to figure that out. You're looking for objective data. You're not just asking yourself, well, what does my ego say? Oh, my ego says I'm the best, or my ego says I'm the worst. And so this is an interesting thing too. Narcs are constantly flip-flopping between feeling winner, loser, best, worst. Beauty queen, hideous troll. Like that's how they're feeling all the time. So they're wrong, both of those times, right? Because they're not really a winner, but they're not really a loser either. And they're not, and I mean, they might be. If they won a gold medal, then yes, they're a winner. And we know that because we objectively can say, you won a gold medal. You won that. Okay. But in their minds, they will also get really depressed and be like, oh, I'm a loser when they're not a loser. Okay? So like it's not fun to be them either. It's not fun to have to like be around this, but it's also not fun to be them and have their self-esteem flip-flopping. I mean, I wouldn't even call it self-esteem what they have. They have a blank empty space where their self-esteem should be. Where normal people don't feel good all the time, but have some sense that they're okay. Like, they're not the best, they're not the worst, they're just a human, they're just here. It's kind of the way you'd feel about if there's a dog sleeping on the floor. Does it matter if he's the best dog in the world or the worst dog? No, he's just a dog sleeping on the floor. Yeah. That's how like normal people feel about themselves, right? And like they will feel proud of themselves or guilty or bad depending on how things work, but it's not this huge swing. It's not like 0 to 100, 0 to 100. It's more like, I'm a dog sleeping on the floor. Oh, I got a milk bone today. I worked really hard. Yeah, I really worked hard at work or school today. I got a milk bone. That was nice. That makes me feel a little bit, yeah, makes me feel good. But they're not going to be like, I am the best dog in the world. I am the best. And I'm going to rule the world. And everyone will see him. Like, no, there's a dog on the floor. That's how normal people feel. Right? They like themselves, but they don't see themselves as the world's best. Because, like, even if you are the world's best, it's only in one narrow area. You can't be best at everything. So even if you have, let's say you have a gold medal in swimming or something, Michael Phelps or whatever, right? You have a gold medal in swimming. You don't have a gold medal in everything, and you have a gold medal that year or that event. You don't own everything forever, past, present, future, Next year, someone can come and beat you, even at the very next swim meet, somebody might beat you. So even that, like, it will never be everything. And that's reality, okay? That's just the world. But to a narc, they are the best ever. They are the one and only, the only swimmer who's ever been truly great, or the worst swimmer who's ever lived. That's how they see it. So it really explains a lot. And it also, to me, explains why that entitlement is there. Because they're not looking at objective reality. And they're giving themselves credit as if they were the one true whatever, the best in the land. And that kind of a feeling, I think that it protects them from all of that emptiness that they have inside, from that big hole of like the brain damage that they have. Basically, they have this big hole like where their self-esteem should be, and there's nothing there, and it feels bad. So then they throw other stuff into that hole to try to like feel better about it. And by doing that, they create these massive problems for themselves and other people. So, I mean, as I always say, like, my personal view is that it is brain damage, and it's not their fault that they have that. I do think narcs can learn basically by memorizing some ways to make things suck less for themselves and other people, but like they can't fully change their brain any more than a paralyzed person can just jump up and walk, because it's a permanent damage. And I say that because we don't have any proof that they can be cured. We don't have any proof of that. We just have vague things about, oh, maybe this could sort of kind of help. And yeah, like sort of kind of help can make a huge difference in someone's life, even if it's only like 5% better. Like if you're paralyzed and you can move 5% of your body, that's pretty huge. But yeah, I don't blame them, because I do see it as like a physical problem, and I do see it as brain damage. But Anyway, I've just been thinking about some of those things as far as why do they feel special? Why do they feel entitled? Why aren't they comparing themselves and seeing where they fit with the rest of the world and objective reality? I think that's why. The ego is just whispering something to them and they're blindly believing it. The way that an infant would, or like a 1-year-old would, when their mom tells them, like, oh, you're the best child in the world. And they're like, oh, I am. I really am. I'm the best child in the world. The 1-year-old isn't like, well, let me look this up. Let me Google children and see, am I really the best in the world? Like, they're not going to look into it. They're not going to even stop to think if it's true. They're going to blindly accept that, which is totally appropriate, like, at that age. But when you're an adult, that's why you need critical thinking skills to know what's true, what's not. That's why we have science. To prove things wrong is as important as proving them right, right? But narcs don't care too much about that. They care about what their ego is telling them. So their ego tells them, well, I like this expert and they said this, so it must be true. They don't actually look at the data or the logic or the, comparing and contrasting. Like, does the study make sense the way that they did it? Are there holes in that logic? They're not going to look at any of that. So anyway, that's just some ideas that were coming to mind today as far as narcissism and trying to understand some of the weird stuff that they do. I hope this was helpful and just helping to like understand this other way of thinking, which is really hard to do. It's also hard for other narcissists to understand narcissists. It's hard for everyone to get it. I was reading this thing today about how narcissists, even when they see another narcissist, sometimes they're just like at a loss. Even though they're doing the exact same thing, it's hard for them to understand it in other people. So any little tidbit that I feel like I learn and I can share with you guys can help us all to kind of understand, like, why are they doing that? Because I think that's one of the things that's the most frustrating. If you have known narcissists or have narcissists in your life, which most people do because there's so many out there, it can just be maddening to be like, but wait, how can they believe this is true when look at the evidence? It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't match. Well, that's how, because their ego is telling them something and they just get a feeling that they're right. And they have no interest in actually looking in and researching and looking at reality to see if it makes sense or not. And just a reminder for any narcissists that are watching, remember that's true for the negative stuff as well. It's true for the positive, but it's also true for the negative, because I've also heard narcissists completely discount qualities that are objectively good and true about them. When I say good, I don't mean like right and wrong. I mean like they are smart or they are attractive or whatever, and they just can't see it because their ego is telling them, no, you're the worst ever. And it's not true, but they believe that because their ego is telling them that. Even because their ego can't handle the middle ground of gray area. It's just like, if you're not Brad Pitt, you are just a piece of dust or whatever, fill in the blank. And they can't handle that. No, they could be a really, really attractive person and maybe not Brad Pitt level, but maybe the next level down, right? Like their brain can't quite get that. So it's not only being delusional for good, it's also for bad stuff too. So anyway, some more random thoughts. And if you are struggling with dealing with a narcissist who's harmed you, therapy is the thing. I'm not a therapist, so I can't help you with that. But therapy can help you with deep emotional pain and emotional wounds and all of that. So that would be the thing to do. I help people with life coaching, so we deal with the present moment going towards future goals for emotionally healthy people. And the reason for that is just because it doesn't work There's like a fire alarm going off. It doesn't work for people that aren't emotionally healthy. That's the reason why life coaching is only for emotionally healthy people, because clearly you can see, like, if you have this kind of narcissist thing, that's not going to work, right? The whole life coaching process is focused on objective reality and then taking action and then blah blah blah. Anyway, you can go to my website yourdreamslifecoach.com if you want to get rates for life coaching. Fill out the form, tell me your situation, and if that's a match for like what I do, then I will email you rates. Thanks for watching, guys, and feel free to comment, subscribe, like. I always appreciate it. Have a good one.